Hey guys, just a quick video on this flooring I've just put down using scaffold planks, or scaffold boards as some people call them. So these are the how they turn up, and as you can see they've got this metal band around the end which protects them in use, and you have to take that off to use them for floorboards. I suppose you could leave it on if you wanted, if you were just putting them down in a shed or something, or where you weren't too fussy about the look, but I took mine off. And the easiest way to get them off is use a chisel. I've got an old scruffy wood chisel which I have lying around for using for not very nice jobs. As you can see, the hand's all mangled up, but it's still good for this. So what you do, you just use your hammer, you bash it in there, pry it out, and then you can use your claw hammer to get in behind, pull that out. You fold it right round so it's out the way, get your chisel back, and now that will go slide right up to there. Lever that one out a bit, pull it out with the hammer again, and then this end bit here, which is got a kind of crimping with little spiky bits on the outside. I wonder if I can find a one where I've taken the end off. Here you go. So yeah. So this is what the end bits look when you take them off, and you can see these little spiky bits on the end, which are stuck in the end of the plank or board. You can just pull those off by hand. Once you've got one end free, you just give it a good pull and it'll just come off. Just watch, because the edges are a bit sharp when you're doing it. So that's how you prep the boards. These ones have been really straight actually, which was fine. Now my dad told me to leave them inside for a couple of weeks and let them dry out. And I did that, but the windows weren't in at the time, and I think either it wasn't warm enough for them to dry out properly, or they just needed longer. I'm not quite sure, but as you can see, they've been put down now, and they're staying down because there's over 1,000 screws in this room holding the floorboards down, and as you can see, they've dried a bit more, and in some places we've got some quite large cracks. I mean, that one there must be getting on for 3mm. But as you can see, the gaps are inconsistent. I mean, there's a 3mm one there, that's probably just over a shade over 1mm, and here we've got barely no gap at all. So when these were put down, there were no gaps whatsoever. So because I made sure they're all squashed up against one another before they were screwed into position. So my only the only reassurance, that's it. The only reassurance I have really is if I had let them dry out first, then they probably some would have been drier than others anyway, or shrunk more than others anyway, because I presume they're cut wet, the boards. And Dad was saying apparently that when you, depending where the board comes from within the tree, whether it's like round from the outside or in the middle, or how fast the tree has grown, all sorts of things like that, then it will shrink at different rates. So, so for example, we've got an area here where there's some quite big gaps, but then over here there's hardly any gap at all, and this one here is I filled that with some lime render just for an experiment, and that's opened up again. So it looks like I'll have to do some filling at some point to fill these gaps in. I might use a sort of beige silicone because it's nice and bendy and sticky, so it probably won't uh, come unstuck and cause more cracks later on. But one thing I'm going to do for sure is leave these for like a month in a heated room. We haven't got the heating in here yet, so I'm going to put the heating in next week, and after that's done, I'm going to leave the floorboards for a month to like do their thing and properly dry out, if that's what's going to happen, so that when I actually fill them, that will be the final sized gap. Of course, there's another thing to worry about, and that is once you've filled all the gaps, you're taking out your room for expansion. So you might get some, what do they call it, cupping or bowing of the wood. So when you have boards laid across the room like this, because the boards are more likely to shrink swell 90 degrees to the direction of the grain. So if you got a large, well, it's not that big, is it? But if you've got a width like this anyway, and they all start to expand, then you can get problems where the boards bow up in the middle because they haven't got anywhere to go, so they just start to squeeze upwards. And that's like a really strong force, and could possibly snap the screws which are holding them down. So whatever I fill the gaps with, I'll try and make sure it's a bit squashy. So silicone might be a quite good option. But again, my dad was saying, he's full of good ideas, he was talking to this sailor chap in the village who's got some floorboards with gaps in them like this, and what he said to do is you get a bit of Hessian string and you push it down in the gap using you know, what do you call those things? Palette knife. You know, the things used for spreading putty or used to around windows. What are the things you use in baking called? Yeah, palette knife, isn't it? Yes, you push the string down in the gap like that, and then you can put some kind of filler on top of it, and the string stops the stuff falling through. I think in boats it stops the water forcing its way through the gap, or pushing the actual filler out. But yeah, so I use size 5 screws on these boards. You can see just about here where I've marked lines across, and I put a screw very close to the edge and one in the middle, and we'll see over time whether that holds up. But as I say, this room is roughly 4 by 7, which is 28 square meters, and I used 1,200 screws. So what's that? Do the maths. It's like, what's that? 30 screws per square meter? Is that right? Or have I got that wrong? 28 square meters, say 30 for ease of what's it? 1,200 screws. Yeah, about 40 screws per square meter you'll need. Do it following my method. They're screwed on every joist. So 3 screws, every joist on every plank. You can see here, if you draw a line across when you do it, then all the screws end up in a nice straight line, and it looks quite neat. By comparison, over in the doorway over here, I didn't draw a line and it looks a bit scruffy. So you can see they're all over the place, and that doesn't look quite so good. But as you can see, I've been lime rendering the walls, and a good side effect of that has been we've got lime render all over the floor, and kept sweeping it up and smooshing it about with trowels and whatnot when we're scooping it up, and that's filled in all the screw holes with lime render. So that's saved us a job, filling those up, because when we varnish the floor or whatever we're going to do to it, then that will probably blend in with the lime render and kind of toughen all those the stuff that's gone in the screw holes. The lime render and the screw holes will probably toughen it up, so that might work quite well. But yeah, still got to get around these gaps, but I'm gonna leave that a month or so for them to like dry out properly. But you can see over here, you know, the inconsistency between the drying. You've got quite a large gap there and hardly any here. So that's some reassurance. If I'd let them dry out, they may have been different sizes anyway and not gone down particularly well. So anyway, I'll stop blathering on now. That's 10 minutes worth, and I hope that's been of some use. But I think if I had my time again, I would probably leave them longer to dry out. But if I'd done that, I wouldn't have been able to put them down before we rendered the walls, and I kind of wanted to do that for safety and convenience. So there you go. Anyway, hope that's useful. Cheerio. Bye.